Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. أما بعد أحبتي في الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسأل الله كريم رب العرش العظيم أن يتولنا في الدنيا والآخرة. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Almighty accepts our good and forgives our evil, protects us from kulli su makruh. أحبتي في الله, a question was asked from one of the youth about marriage and asking for advice because of the problems that he finds in trying to find suitable sisters in the West, unfortunately. And so I've heard this complaint and these concerns articulated on numerous occasions, meaning many people ask about this. Many of the youth, especially those who are practicing, say, hey, I can't find a good, righteous sister here in America because all the sisters are playing games. They're all into social media. They're all into this and that and the other. They're playing games. They are not serious about their deen. They, wear makeup and they do all this other stuff and tabarruj and mix with men and play games. And this is an unfortunate travesty that we find the decline in the true righteousness of the Muslim youth. And so I don't want to blame just obviously the sisters, because it's their mothers who allow them to go to the masjid. And so, yeah, they're at the masjid and they're hanging out with the boys. You can go to many of the masajid here in America and you'll find a lot of the youth just so mixed in, not studying together, but just getting involved in all kind of relationships to where they begin to then it becomes an issue of where they're, sometimes establishing relationships that are inappropriate as a Muslim. And so with that being the case, ahabati fillah, it's very important to know a few, have some parameters and find that woman which is suitable for what you're looking for. First and foremost, one of the things that's very important as a person looking to get married is determining what you want. So as a practicing mutadayyin youth or older person, it's not about age necessarily, but a person who's looking for marriage, brothers that are looking for marriage, they have to determine what they're looking for. What kind of sister are you looking for? And some things you have to consider is this a woman who is righteous, who if you have children with, she's going to raise your children on righteousness. If something happens to you, if you pass, may Allah protect us from passing early unless it's good for us, or something, you end up divorcing or what have you, is she going to raise your children on righteousness and goodness? That's imperative for you to consider in marriage. Secondly, as we've talked about before in choosing a spouse, that no doubt physical attraction is important, and I never negate that. I'm not like others who might say, no, you just marry for the deen and it's all going to be perfect. Yes, that's super important. That's not the only reason. It's a gem. It's a combination because we fluctuate in iman. We grow in different directions. We're not always as religious as we need to be. And you need that other fabric, that glue, which is a bond. And as a man in this contemporary society and in contemporary times, I can speak for many that you need to have a woman who can help your eyes be cooled and your gaze be lowered. And we see so much mafasid. We could write books and volumes about all the problems when people are not attracted. And sometimes even there's good religion, but that you need the combination. You need good deen and you need that you are attracted. She doesn't have to be a model. She has to be what is attractive to you and what pleases you, what will help you lower your gaze and combat the fitna of the society. So that's very, very important as a Muslim man to consider for young and older. And as you get more mature, there's some, who don't need that as much. And more so, especially the youth, a lot of times they need that which is really enticing to their eyes. So this is something also critical to consider. But think about this. When choosing a woman that you've met through social media, that you get from the websites, that you get whatever, that think about if she is showing you pictures, if she is giving you videos, if she is doing, you're probably not the first. That means there's others who are also getting entertained and having those delights of the eyes and the increase of sin before you. So if you do marry a woman like that, think about the others that she had sit downs with, and you can see if she was loose with you, you're probably not the first. Okay, so it's very, very important as Muslim men to be cognizant of that in choosing, because we live in a disastrous time with social media, and we have different morals that the Muslims, they make their own American Muslim immigrant values. And what I mean by that is indigenous, or ones who grew up here, they're going to have their values and baggage they carry to Islam. And then you'll have a lot of immigrant communities who bring their wickedness too. That is not from Islam. That's the point, is people are getting further from deen when it comes to the mannerisms and the characteristics in this bab, especially of choosing a spouse and trying to get married based on the book and the sunnah. We've got away from, how we should think about a mahar. This is another mufasid that we see. So you also want to be careful if you see a woman, she's got an outrageous mahar. She says, yeah, I want you to buy me a house. I need a car. I need 7 dogs. I need, a pot of gold. Then you've got to think about, what does she have to offer? Now, if you're a person of wealth and you can do that, I'm not saying, except for the dogs, I'm not saying not to do that, but I'm saying you need to consider that when you invest to that level and that you see that materialism is a big part of her foundation of who she is, you need to consider, is that right for you? And in general, that is not something which is an Islamically positive trait. I don't say people have different lifestyles. People do. And some people are wealth. They come from a wealthy background, no problem. But if that is what they are, a person who covet this, you need to consider that, because maybe at some point your wealth is restricted in the marriage. You lose your job, something like this. Is she going to be a ride or die person? She's going to be in it to win it? She's going to go the long haul? Or is she going to depart and say, hey, we're struggling, I want out, or I'm going to seek something on the side? And this is another travesty that we're seeing in some of our communities, our Muslim communities, from sisters. So it's very important. You want, probably the last point I want to mention is, you want somebody who has tarbiyah. And what I mean is that they have sort of an Islamic education, or guess what? They just have a good foundation in education. And what I mean by this, by righteousness, righteous education. And so, for example, we've known some of our sisters who were very religious Christians, and then they become Muslim, and they carried those values. So they, even though new Muslims, I know enough sisters from the past who were very good before Islam, so then they brought that into Islam. They came into Islam, akramakumullah, as virgins. They didn't have those boyfriends and illicit relationships. So if you find a good sister like that, she's a new Muslimah, but she's got good family values, alhamdulillah. Or even Ahl Kitab, a Jew or a Christian girl. And I don't want to encourage the brothers to necessarily go and leave our Muslim sisters. But if you can't find it, you got to do what you got to do. You've got to get married. So if you find a righteous woman of education and intellect and good morals that is a Christian or a Jew, then you've got to think about what's best for you. And so that's why I don't negate that, but there are some other problems with that. But I'm just saying, if so many of our sisters become so materialistic and so much they are social media pundits and they're so involved in madness, then you've got to start considering what all your options are. You can also think about marrying a sister overseas, but there's a lot of other difficulties with that. Now, I want to equally apply this advice to the sisters, in that, yes, we have a lot of brothers, especially I'd say these generations now too, that are, some of them are just worthless. And I mean what I mean by worthless. So let me clarify that, so you don't say, oh, he may take fit or he this. Worthless, I mean that they don't have any sense of responsibility. They've never worked a job. They don't know how to be men. They don't know how. They're immature. They don't know how to take care of a family. They don't know how to, educate their family. They're focused only on themselves. Whatever the case may be. There's a lot of problems there. So what I'm saying is maturity is very important, and deen, maturity and deen, or at least that they have enough good education. What I mean is that tarbiyah, they have good family values to where they can grow into those roles. You see the potential there. So those are things for sister to look at, not just that, oh, he's got a Lamborghini, he's got this, he's got that, I'm good with whatever. Well, those kind of values, that kind of mentality does not usually last. The marriage does not last. And there's a variety of reasons for that without us going into it. So the point is deen is very important. Manners and adab is very important. And equally, as I said, with the brothers, that the sisters, especially in this age, because a lot of sisters, they watch the soap operas and they want a guy who comes from Turkey, who is like this, or from this country or that country. He's got to look like this. His hair's got to be like this. So I do say that the sister should be attracted to the brother, and that also attracted to his religion, his values, his maturity, if he comes from a good family, if he doesn't come from a family, but he has the good moral values and love for the sunnah and practice of the sunnah and good conduct and character, then these are excellent traits to follow. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that if a righteous suitor comes to you and you don't, and you refuse, then the fasad will spread through the earth. And we see the chaos because the sisters, they've got to have the wealthiest brother. Now, I don't say that you marry just because he's a righteous guy and he's a student of knowledge and he doesn't have a job that you're going to marry him. No, I say, yes, you have criterion. You want to be taken care of. You have expectations, but do not take that which is just pleasing to your nafs only over that which is good for your deen and your dunya and your akhirah, most importantly. So it's very important, these issues. This is just general advice that I can offer, and I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for all the people, all the Muslims, because there are many sisters that want to get married and can't find suitable husbands. And I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them with righteous, handsome husbands that can take care of their needs and wishes. And I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses all the sisters, all the brothers who wish to find righteous sisters to find them. A last point I want to mention is that you should never give up, in that there are many good families here in America that have good daughters and good sons for marriage. So you should never give up hope and say, well, I've got to go overseas. I got to go to Kenya. I got to go to Somalia. I got to go to Ethiopia. I got to go back home to Pakistan. I got to go to India. No, there are many good here that just want to be taken care of, and they are good in conduct and can be and that have good tarbiyah. So it's very important for us to not give up. But I want to put that out there, as this was the question, in relation to the question that was asked, that these things all need to be considered. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil, protect us all from kulli su' makruh, rectify our condition and affairs. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.